Imagine you stand by a shimmering river, but this is not just any river. It is a lifeline, a sculpted vein in the earth, carrying water to parched lands, connecting vast cities. You feel the ancient dust on your skin, hear the distant echoes of labor. These were not natural formations. They were monumental feats of engineering, carved from the ground by countless hands. Today we often admire the empires, the kings, the grand structures. But who were the people, the forgotten thousands, who actually moved the earth? Who painstakingly dug these essential canals, day after day, year after year, with nothing more than basic tools and sheer will? You are about to step into their world, a world of sun, soil, and relentless effort, as we uncover the stories of those whose anonymous toil shaped civilizations. You stand now on ground that holds a deep memory, a geological echo. Peel back the layers of time, centuries, even millennia. Beneath your feet, there once pulsed a vital artery, a man-made river, a testament to raw human will. This was not a slow meandering stream carving its own path. This was a deliberate incision, a purposeful wound, shaped by countless individual efforts. Imagine the air here, thick with the scent of sun-baked soil, the faint, metallic tang of sweat, and the sharp, earthy aroma of freshly turned ground. You close your eyes and in your mind you can almost hear it. Not the rush of water yet, but the steady, rhythmic symphony of labor. A dull thud as a heavy wooden pickaxe strikes compacted earth. The gritty scrape of a crude shovel against stone. The sigh of exertion, followed by the shuffle of bare feet or simple sandals. Consider the tools. There were no roaring excavators, no pneumatic drills, no dynamite to blast through rock. The technology was brutally simple, yet incredibly effective in the hands of tens of thousands. You might be handed a tool yourself, a heavy, broad-bladed shovel fashioned from hardened wood or bronze, its edge dulled by endless encounters with clay and stone. Or maybe a stout pickaxe, its point tipped with obsidian, flint, or fire-hardened wood, designed to break apart the earth's crust. For cutting dense root networks, a simple mattock. For moving loosened soil, woven baskets of reeds or animal hide, slung over shoulders or carried on heads. Each stroke of the pick, each scoop of the shovel, was a conscious act against the inertia of the land. You would learn quickly the rhythm of the work, how to put your entire body into the swing, channeling strength from your core into the strike. The muscles in your arms and shoulders would ache, a deep, persistent burn that never truly left you even in moments of rest. Your hands, initially soft, would soon harden, developing thick calluses, resistant to splinters and friction, but always bearing the evidence of relentless toil. The sun would be your constant companion, an unyielding eye in the vast, pale sky. From dawn, its rays would begin to beat down, growing fiercer through the morning, culminating in a midday heat that could bake you to your core. Sweat would pour from you, stinging your eyes, plastering your hair to your forehead, soaking your simple garment. The dust, fine and omnipresent, would cling to your skin, mix with your sweat, and coat the inside of your mouth and nose, making every breath a gritty experience. Look at the line of workers beside you. They stretch for hundreds of yards, perhaps miles, a human chain into the hazy distance. Each person contributes to a small section, deepening the trench inches each day. You see the strained faces, the grim determination, the subtle camaraderie of shared hardship. There are no individual heroes here. Their heroism lies in the collective, in the sheer, unyielding endurance of their numbers. Their monument is the channel itself, a pathway for life-giving water. This was not a project of weeks or months. These were undertakings that spanned years, often decades, sometimes even generations. A father might begin a section, his son continuing the work, perhaps even his grandson. Knowledge, techniques, the physical memory of how to move earth effectively, would be passed down through family lines. You would learn not just to dig, but to understand the earth itself, where the soil was soft and yielding, where it was dense clay, where hidden rocks lurked. The purpose, of course, was water. To bring water from distant rivers or lakes to irrigate fields, turning barren land into fertile ground for feeding populations. To create pathways for barges, moving goods and people across vast distances far more efficiently than land routes. To provide defensive moats around cities, or to drain swamps, turning malarial wastes into habitable land. You understood your labor directly contributed to the survival and prosperity of your community, your city, your empire. This was not abstract work but life itself, carved from the earth. Think of the variety of earth you might encounter. Soft, alluvial soil near riverbeds, rich and dark, yielding relatively easily to the shovel. Then perhaps dense, sticky clay clinging to tools requiring constant scraping and cleaning. Or further on, a layer of compacted gravel, demanding the pickaxe to break it apart piece by painful piece. Sometimes, the dread discovery of solid bedrock, necessitating more arduous methods. Perhaps even the slow, dangerous work of building fires to crack the stone, followed by dousing with water. Each type of earth presented its own unique challenge, its specific physical tax. The number of hands involved was staggering. For the Grand Canal of China, for example, millions of workers were conscripted over centuries. In ancient Mesopotamia, hundreds of thousands toiled on vast irrigation networks. Egyptian pharaohs commanded similar multitudes. You are but one among these many, a single cog in an enormous, earth-altering machine. Your individual effort seems small, yet indispensable, a single drop in an ocean of labor. Overhead, an overseer might stalk, armed with a stick or a whip, urging speed, demanding more effort. The constant pressure, the fear of punishment, added another layer of burden. Yet even in this harsh environment there were moments. A shared gulp of water from a skin bottle, passed down the line. A brief, whispered joke to alleviate tension. The profound relief when the sun began its descent, casting long shadows across the deepening trench, signaling the end of another day. Your food would be simple, likely a meager ration of grains or dried vegetables, just enough to fuel the next day's grind. Sleep, when it came, was deep, born of pure exhaustion, often under the open sky or in rudimentary shelters. Dreams might be filled with the repetitive motion of digging, the feel of the earth, the endless blue of the sky. Each morning the cycle began anew. The sun would rise, painting the horizon in fiery hues, and the picks would once again strike the earth. Day after day, week after week, month after month, the ditch grew longer, deeper, wider. Slowly, painstakingly, the landscape was transformed. You watched the progress, the subtle yet profound alteration of the world around you, a testament to what collective human effort could achieve. Then the glorious moment. The water finally. After weeks or months of digging, the first trickle appears at the end of the channel, a dark, muddy stream at first, growing clearer, stronger, wider. The cool liquid laps at the freshly dug earth, smoothing rough edges, settling the dust. This was the reward, the tangible outcome of sweat and aching muscles. You would witness the arid land drink, the plants begin to flourish, the promise of life delivered by your very own hands. But as with all things, time marches on. Empires rise and fall. Climates shift. Needs of communities change. Many of these ancient canals, once vibrant arteries of commerce and life, have since been abandoned. They have filled with silt, overgrown with vegetation, or been swallowed by shifting sands. You might stand today in a field, unaware that beneath your feet lies the ghost of such a channel, its banks long collapsed, its purpose forgotten by all but the earth. The whispers of these waterways are subtle, unseen, yet they are there, imprinted on the landscape, a silent testament to the anonymous labor that once brought them to roaring life. The world you inhabit, the very ground you walk on, may well be built upon the foundations laid by these forgotten workers. Their efforts shaped agriculture, facilitated trade, allowed cities to flourish, and influenced the trajectory of human civilization. They are the unseen architects, the silent sculptors of the past, whose legacy endures, even if their names do not. You are now attuned to their presence, listening for the faint echoes of their picks and shovels, aware of the invisible rivers that once flowed and the lives they sustained. The quiet hum of your awareness, the faint echoes you perceive, are not merely sounds of labor for survival. They are the distant roar of ambition, the ceaseless craving of power. Imagine now the birth of empire. Not a gentle growth, but a ravenous expansion consuming land, resources, and people. And at the heart of every great empire, every sprawling dominion, lay a fundamental, unyielding need: water. You stand on the sun-baked plains of ancient Mesopotamia, a land cradled by two mighty rivers. Here the first cities rose not by chance but by design. To feed the burgeoning populations, to sustain the armies, to establish dominance over rivals, control of water was paramount. You see the earliest forms of planned irrigation, not just ditches for a single farm, but vast networks designed to bring life to entire regions. A king who could command the waters, who could ensure fertile fields year after year, held absolute power. His grip was not on the sword alone, but on the very lifeblood of his people, flowing through man-made channels. These early canals were monuments to necessity, yes, but also to nascent imperial control, requiring organization, management, and the coordinated labor of thousands. Travel westward following the Great Nile. You are in Egypt, a civilization utterly dependent on the river's annual flood. But even the Nile needed persuasion, its bounty extended and managed by human hands. You witness the digging of basins, the construction of dikes, the cutting of canals that spread the floodwaters into new areas, enabling multiple harvests, feeding a vast empire. The pharaohs, seen as divine rulers, were not just spiritual leaders. They were the ultimate hydraulic engineers, demanding the immense effort required to shape the landscape to their will. Imagine the rhythmic chant of the foreman, the sheer number of bodies moving earth, under a relentless sun, all to ensure the granaries were full, the empire stable, the pharaoh's power unquestioned. Consider the vastness of the Persian Empire, stretching from the Aegean Sea to the Indus River. Such an empire faced immense logistical challenges. How do you move armies across deserts? How do you supply distant garrisons? How do you facilitate trade across such a colossal domain? The answer often was water. You might observe the command of Darius I, who ordered the digging of a canal connecting the Nile River to the Red Sea. Not merely a local irrigation project, but a strategic waterway designed to enhance trade, project power, and link the far-flung corners of his empire. You picture the foreign engineers, the tens of thousands of conscripted laborers, likely a mix of Egyptians and conquered peoples, toiling for years to carve this channel through arid land. Their sweat, their lives became the price of imperial ambition. Shift your gaze to the powerful Roman Empire, a civilization renowned for its engineering prowess. While aqueducts often steal the spotlight, canals played an equally vital, though often less celebrated, role. You walk alongside a Roman legion, not on a road, but beside a newly dug canal, carrying troops and supplies deep into enemy territory. You see canals draining vast swamps, transforming malarial wetlands into fertile agricultural land, expanding the empire's food supply and its taxable base. You observe engineers planning complex systems to bypass rapids on rivers or to connect two separate river systems, creating inland waterways that facilitated trade and communication across a continental empire. The scale of these projects, often executed by legionaries themselves when not fighting, or by enslaved populations, speaks to the Roman capacity for immense, organized effort, all in service of consolidating and expanding their dominion. But perhaps nowhere does the intersection of imperial ambition and human labor on an epic scale become more clear than in China. You are transported across centuries, witnessing the construction of the Grand Canal. This is not just a canal. It is a ribbon of water over 1,000 miles long, linking the Yellow River in the north to the Yangtze River in the south. Imagine the vision of Emperor Yang of the Sui dynasty or later emperors, who saw the strategic necessity of uniting a vast country, of feeding northern capitals with rice from the fertile south, of moving armies and officials with unprecedented speed. This was a project of unimaginable scope, spanning generations involving literally millions of workers. You stand on the banks of a section being dug. The air is thick with dust and the groans of men. You see laborers, hundreds of thousands of them, conscripted peasants, captured enemies, forced into brutal service. They wield simple hoes, shovels, and baskets, chipping away at the earth, one scoop at a time. The work is relentless, the conditions horrific. Disease runs rampant. Famine stalks the camps. The casualty rates are staggering, yet the work continues, driven by imperial decree, by the need for unity, by the thirst for control over a continent-sized domain. The suffering of these nameless millions is a silent testament to the raw power of an emperor who could command such a project into being, and who could afford to expend so many lives in its realization. The Grand Canal, even today, stands as a functional marvel, a direct consequence of imperial might and the anonymous sacrifice of millions. It reshaped China's economy, its politics, its very demography, fostering trade, allowing armies to be deployed rapidly, and solidifying the power of the central government. It is a physical manifestation of an empire's will, carved into the very earth by the most basic of tools and the most expendable of hands. These forgotten workers, whether enslaved, conscripted, or pressed into corvée labor, were the sinews of empire. They were the unacknowledged heroes, or perhaps more accurately, the unacknowledged victims, whose toil transformed landscapes, birthed economies, and solidified the power of kings and emperors. Their dreams, their families, their very identities were swallowed by the monumental demands of an imperial system that saw them not as individuals, but as units of labor, raw materials in the grand design. The grand narrative of empire often focuses on the emperors, the generals, the political machinations. But you are now keenly aware of the silent foundation upon which these grand narratives were built. It was the unceasing back-breaking work of digging, hauling, and shaping the earth, guided by the unseen hand of an empire's insatiable thirst. These channels, now sometimes just faint depressions in the ground, once pulsed with the ambition of kings and the collective, anonymous effort of an untold multitude, a powerful reminder that history's grandest projects often rest on the shoulders of those whose names have been utterly erased by time. You stand at the edge of what will become a monumental undertaking. The sun already beats down, promising a brutal day, one of countless brutal days stretching into years, perhaps even decades. Before you the earth lies unbroken, a vast, indifferent expanse. There are no rumbling engines here, no towering cranes or precision-engineered excavators. Your tools are profoundly simple, direct extensions of your own body, demanding an intimate, almost primal relationship with the very ground beneath your feet. Imagine the basic kit. You grip a wooden digging stick, its tip hardened by fire, perhaps capped with a shard of stone or a piece of tough horn. This is your primary implement, your first assault on the unyielding soil. Or perhaps you wield a simple hoe, a flat blade of stone, bone, or later, a crude piece of copper or bronze lashed tightly to a wooden shaft. It is heavy, unbalanced, and quickly dulled. These are not tools designed for speed or efficiency in the modern sense. They are designed for relentless application, hour after hour, day after day. With a grunt, you drive your digging stick into the earth. It is not an easy push. The soil resists, compacted by centuries, tangled with roots, sometimes studded with stubborn rocks. You lean into it, your muscles straining. The earth gives way reluctantly, a small chunk at a time. Then you pull, pry, and twist. The rhythm begins, a slow, methodical dance of effort. Push, pry, pull. Push, pry, pull. Beside you, dozens, hundreds, thousands of others engage in the same slow, laborious rhythm. The air fills with the sounds of their collective struggle, the dull thud of wood on earth, the scrape of stone, the heavy breathing, the occasional shout or sigh. There is no music here, only the raw symphony of human toil. Once the earth is loosened, it must be removed. This is where the true scale of the manual effort becomes starkly apparent. There are no conveyor belts to carry away the spoil, no dump trucks to haul it to distant sites. Instead, you reach for a woven basket, perhaps made of reeds or stout fibers. It is small, designed to be manageable when full, yet still heavy enough to make its constant lifting a test of endurance. You scoop the loosened earth into your basket, perhaps using your bare hands, feeling the cool, damp soil, the gritty sand, or the sticky clay. Each basket is filled, then lifted. You hoist it onto your shoulder, or more commonly, onto your head, a traditional method of carrying heavy loads that distributes weight but demands precise balance and strong neck muscles. You join a seemingly endless procession, a human chain stretching from the bottom of the burgeoning trench up to the growing spoil heaps that flank the canal's path. Each step is deliberate. The ground is uneven, churned to mud by an unexpected rain shower yesterday, or perhaps baked hard and dusty by weeks of sun. Your feet ache. Your shoulders burn. The weight of the earth presses down on your skull, a constant, dull throb. The spoil heaps themselves are monuments to this incremental labor. Picture mountains of excavated earth, growing day by day, year by year. Each grain of soil, each pebble, each clod of clay has been touched, loosened, scooped, lifted, and carried by human hands. These are not just piles of dirt. They are the tangible accumulation of millions upon millions of individual acts of exertion, a testament to the unquantifiable human cost. Consider the sheer volume of earth moved. Ancient canals often stretched for tens or even hundreds of kilometers. Even a relatively modest canal, say 100 kilometers long, 10 meters wide, and 3 meters deep, represents 3 million cubic meters of earth. To move that with basic tools, one basketful at a time, is a staggering feat of logistics and raw, unadulterated human power. And this is just the average. Some canals were far larger, wider, and deeper, traversing treacherous terrain, cutting through solid rock, or navigating shifting sands. For these grander projects, the work transcended mere digging. It involved quarrying. Imagine not just loosening soil, but chipping away at bedrock with crude picks and wedges, perhaps using fire and water to crack the stone, then hauling out fragments many times heavier than a basket of soil. The sound of stone being struck, the ringing echo across the barren landscape, would have been a constant backdrop to the daily grind. The work was relentless, guided by the sun from dawn until dusk, and sometimes extending into the moonlit nights when the heat was too oppressive for daytime labor. You work in silence, or perhaps to the chant of an overseer, a rhythmic call and response designed to maintain pace, to keep minds focused on the task, to drown out the whispers of exhaustion and despair. Water is a constant concern. Digging canals requires water for the thirsty workers, but it also means encountering water. As you dig deeper, the ground becomes saturated, turning to thick, clinging mud. Every step becomes an effort. The walls of the trench grow unstable, threatening collapse. Primitive shoring might be employed, rough timbers hammered into place, but these are often insufficient, and the risk of a cave-in is ever present. You are always aware of the earth, its weight, its potential to swallow you whole. The weather is another antagonist. Under the scorching sun, your skin burns, your lips crack, and the dust chokes your throat with every breath. In the rainy season, the trench becomes a muddy river, the earth a slippery, treacherous trap. The air is thick with mosquitoes, carrying unseen fevers that fell men where they stand. There is no protection from the elements, no shelter save for a meager tent during a brief respite, if you are lucky enough to get one. Disease is rampant. Poor sanitation, crowded conditions, contaminated water, and the constant exposure to the elements create a breeding ground for sickness. Dysentery, typhoid, malaria, infections from cuts and scrapes. These are as much a part of the daily threat as the physical demands of digging. A sick worker is a weak worker, and a weak worker is soon replaced, or simply left to perish by the side of the growing channel, his contribution absorbed and forgotten. The body begins to break down. Hands become raw and blistered, then calloused and cracked. Backs ache perpetually. Knees and joints throb with the repetitive strain. eyes squint against the sun and dust. Malnutrition weakens the frame, making the body susceptible to every illness. You witness fellow workers succumb, collapsing under the weight of their baskets, or simply failing to rise one morning. Their absence is noted, a new body assigned to their spot, and the work continues without pause. The canal does not wait. Overseers move amongst the gangs, their whips or staffs a constant reminder of the consequences of flagging effort. The threat of punishment, physical or otherwise, hangs heavy in the air. You are not working for wages in the modern sense. You are working out of obligation, out of servitude, or simply for bare survival. There is no escape from the rhythm, from the endless cycle of digging and carrying. Imagine the perspective from above. If you could fly like a bird over these ancient construction sites, you would see a living, moving landscape, constantly reshaped by the collective effort of tens of thousands, sometimes hundreds of thousands of people. Lines of workers snaking across the plains, individual specks contributing to a colossal endeavor. The growing scar across the earth, deepening and lengthening with each passing day. The noise, though distant, would still carry a hum of relentless activity, a murmur of human struggle against nature itself. And for what? For the vision of a king, for the prosperity of an empire, for the irrigation of fields that would feed a distant populace, or for the transport of goods and armies along a watery highway. The purpose, while grand in the abstract, feels impossibly distant when you are one of the countless individuals driving a wooden stick into the earth for the 1000th time. The monumental tasks were not just about moving earth, they were about moving societies, bending the will of vast populations to a single, overriding purpose. The simple tools were simple only in their design. Their true power lay in their multiplication, placed into the hands of an innumerable workforce, each person a cog in an immense, living machine. This was the reality of ancient engineering. Not the grand designs or the brilliant minds of architects and planners, but the sweat, blood, and bone of the nameless masses. Each cubic meter of soil moved, each stone chiseled, each section of canal excavated, represents an infinitesimal fraction of a human life expended, a moment of physical agony, a drop of sweat. These canals, whether still flowing or long since swallowed by the desert, carry within their very structure the echoes of that suffering. They are not merely waterways, they are graves, monuments of unseen sacrifice, etched into the landscape with the enduring power of human will and the profound cost of human labor. You walk the path they dug, you feel the contours they shaped, and you understand intimately the weight of history beneath your feet. The tools were simple, yes, but the will behind them and the cost of wielding them was anything but. You grasp the rough wooden handle of a spade, its surface worn smooth by countless hands before yours. The tool itself is elementary, perhaps just a broad, flat piece of timber hardened by fire, or perhaps tipped with a hammered bronze or iron edge if you are fortunate. It is a crude extension of your own arm, designed for one purpose: to cut into the unyielding earth. Around you, thousands of others mirror your stance, their bodies already bent, their faces already streaked with sweat and grime, though the morning sun has barely climbed above the horizon. You stand at the edge of the growing trench, a raw wound in the landscape that will one day become a vital artery of water. The air is still, thick with the scent of dry soil and the faint, acrid tang of human exertion. You feel the first beads of sweat trickle down your temples, already anticipating the searing heat of midday. There are no machines here, no pulleys or levers beyond the most rudimentary. Only human muscle, human bone, and the relentless driving force of human will. Or perhaps, more accurately, the human will of those who command you. Your overseer, a figure silhouetted against the blinding glare, shouts a command. It is a word you know intimately, a signal for the day's labor to begin anew. You lift the spade, feeling the familiar ache in your shoulders and lower back. This is a perpetual companion, a dull throb that will sharpen to a searing pain by dusk, only to return with the dawn. You bring the spade down with all your strength, aiming for a spot already loosened by another worker's pickaxe. or perhaps carving into the virgin soil yourself. There is a satisfying thud as the blade bites into the earth. You brace your legs, lean into the shovel, and heave. The first scoop of earth is a small victory. You twist your body, arc your arms, and dump the loose soil into a wicker basket held by the next person in line. Then you repeat the motion. Dig, lift, dump, dig, lift, dump. This is the rhythm of your day, the monotonous cadence that governs every waking hour. It becomes a mantra, a silent chant in your mind, overriding the exhaustion, the thirst, the gnawing hunger that begins almost as soon as you start. Around you, the sounds blend into a single, overwhelming symphony of labor. The rhythmic clang of pickaxes striking rock, the swish of spades through loose soil, the grunt of men straining with heavy loads, the shuffle of feet on dusty ground. And above it all, the sharp, repetitive commands of the overseers, sometimes punctuated by the crack of a whip, a sound that snaps through the air, serving as a brutal reminder of the consequences of faltering, of slowing your pace, of giving in to the overwhelming fatigue. You learn to move as one with the vast multitude of workers. You fall into a shared rhythm, a collective pulse that drives the monumental task forward. You watch the person next to you, matching their tempo, finding a strange comfort in the shared struggle. Each person is a single beat in this vast human engine, and if one falters, the whole rhythm threatens to break. So you push on, not just for yourself, but for the unseen network of bodies that depend on your continued effort. The dust is omnipresent. It rises in clouds with every swing of a tool, every step of a foot, settling on your skin, coating your clothes, gritting your teeth, and filling your lungs. You breathe it in with every gasping breath, feel it drying your throat, making your eyes sting. The sun, a merciless orb in the sky, beats down upon you, unrelenting, driving your body to its limits. Sweat streams down your face, stinging your eyes, plastering your hair to your forehead. Your clothes are soaked, then dried stiff with salt, then soaked again. Thirst becomes a living, breathing entity, a constant companion. Water, when it comes, is often rationed, warm, and carries the faint taste of the river from which it was drawn, a river that might itself be the source of disease. You drink it quickly, feeling it briefly quench the fire in your throat before the heat and the dust reclaim their dominance. There are no long breaks, no true respite. Only fleeting moments to catch your breath, to rub a protesting muscle before the next command rings out. Your hands, once soft, are now calloused, scarred, and cracked. Blisters form, burst, and reform, becoming a permanent part of your being. Your fingernails are broken, your skin is raw. Small injuries are constant. A glancing blow from a falling rock, a splinter from a wooden handle, a cut from a tool. These wounds fester in the heat and dirt, often leading to infections that, in this brutal environment, can swiftly become deadly. You learn to ignore the pain, to push past it, for there is no other choice. To stop is to risk the lash, to risk your meager ration, to risk your very life. Every single basket of earth, every single shovelful, represents a tiny fraction of a human life expended. A moment of pain, a drop of sweat, a beat of a tired heart. Yet, cumulatively, these individual efforts transform the landscape. You see the canal growing, slowly, agonizingly, inch by agonizing inch. The trench deepens, the spoil heaps rise on either side, artificial mountains of displaced soil. You are not building with stone or brick. You are carving the very earth itself, shaping it to the will of your distant rulers. As the sun begins its descent, casting long shadows across the deepening trench, the exhaustion reaches its peak. Your muscles scream with protest. Your body feels heavy as if made of lead. The final commands of the day are met with a last desperate surge of effort, fueled by the promise of a brief, inadequate rest. You drop your spade, feeling the relief in your hands and arms, but the ache in your back and legs remains, a deep, persistent tremor. You walk to the designated sleeping area, your steps slow and shuffling, your gaze fixed on the ground. There is little talk among the workers. Exhaustion has stripped away the desire for conversation. You eat your meager meal, often just a handful of grains or a piece of unleavened bread, chewing slowly, savoring the small calories. Then you lie down among your companions under the vast, indifferent sky, the stars beginning to twinkle overhead. Sleep comes quickly, a deep, dreamless oblivion, a brief escape from the relentless demands of your body. But even in sleep the rhythm persists. The rhythm of the spade, the grunt of effort, the crack of the whip, the silent prayer for strength. You are an anonymous cog in an immense human machine, your name unwritten, your face unknown to history. Yet, without your sweat, without your pain, without your unwavering, forced dedication, these magnificent arteries of civilization would never have been born. You are the forgotten architect, the nameless engineer, the very foundation of an ancient world. And as you feel the pulse of the earth beneath you, you understand deeply that its very contours bear the enduring, indelible mark of your suffering. The first rays of dawn are not a gentle awakening here. They are a promise of the relentless heat to come, a searing premonition. You roll over, feeling the gritty earth cling to your skin, the phantom ache of yesterday's labor already stirring in your muscles and bones. The sky, a vast canvas of deepening blue, is not a comfort. It is a lid, pressing down, a precursor to the oven-like conditions that will dominate your day. As the sun climbs, a slow, inexorable ascent, the air thickens. It becomes heavy, shimmering with heat. You feel it on your exposed skin, a prickling sensation that soon gives way to a deep, burning throb. There is no shade. None. The vast, flat expanse of the excavation offers no respite, no cool haven for even a moment. The only shadows are those cast by your own body, fleeting and insignificant, dancing at your feet, then shrinking to nothing as the sun reaches its zenith. You lift your head, the sun a blinding hammer blow against your eyes, even through squinted lids. Dust, fine as flour, rises with every swing of a pickaxe, every scoop of a basket. It coats your throat, parches your tongue, and settles on your eyelashes, a gritty film that makes your vision blur. The air itself feels abrasive, scraping at the delicate membranes of your nose and mouth. You breathe it in, a mixture of hot air, pulverized earth, and the faint, metallic scent of sweat and effort. Your skin, once supple, is now a mosaic of sun-baked lines and flaking patches. It stretches tight across your frame, a drumhead taut under the constant exposure. The sun has stripped it of moisture, leaving it dry, cracked, and eternally thirsty. You see the same transformation on the faces of those around you. Leathery skin, deep-set eyes, lips chapped and fissured. Every movement is a small protest against the tightness, the chafing of rough fabric, the ever-present sting of sweat in open sores. Dehydration becomes a constant companion, a silent, insidious enemy. Your body screams for water, but the meager rations must be stretched, sipped sparingly, a precious commodity more valuable than gold. You feel the dull throb behind your temples, a headache that never truly recedes, only intensifies with each passing hour under the unyielding glare. Your mouth is a desert, your tongue a swollen, sticky mass. Swallowing is an effort, each gulp a dry, rasping sound. The taste of dust is perpetual. It permeates everything. It mixes with the meager food, it settles on your teeth, it clings to the inside of your nostrils. It is the taste of the very earth you are moving, a constant, gritty reminder of your task. And as the hours drag on, under the relentless, oppressive sun, your thoughts become as parched as your throat. Focus narrows to the next swing, the next step, the simple act of enduring. The landscape itself transforms not just by your labor, but by the sun's dominion. The excavated earth, piled high along the nascent canal, quickly dries to a pale, cracked ochre. The rocks, once cool beneath the surface, now radiate heat, creating shimmering mirages on the horizon. The distant hills, hazy and indistinct, seem to ripple in the heat, their outlines distorted, as if melting into the sky. From a distance, your fellow workers are not individuals but an army of silhouettes. Each figure, bent double or standing stooped, is outlined sharply against the brilliant, merciless sky. The sun bleaches all color from their ragged garments, leaving them ghostly, almost ethereal figures toiling in a monochrome world of dust and glare. Their movements are synchronized, a slow, deliberate ballet of labor. The rise of a pick, the arc of a shovel, the heavy slump of a basket being emptied. The sounds, too, are filtered through the heat and dust. The rhythmic thud of tools hitting rock and soil, the occasional shouted command, the low hum of collective exertion. But beneath it all, if you listen closely, you can hear the symphony of human endurance. The raspy breathing, the soft grunts, the shuffling of feet through loose earth. These are the sounds of a body pushed to its absolute limits, performing its vital function. The sun does not merely provide light, it inflicts a burden. It dictates the pace, drains the energy, and relentlessly pushes you towards exhaustion. You learn to read its position in the sky, not as a marker of time, but as a measure of how much more suffering awaits before the blessed relief of dusk. Midday, when it hangs directly overhead, is the worst. It is a period of utter torment, when every fiber of your being cries out for shade, for water, for cessation. Your eyes burn not just from the glare, but from the constant assault of fine particles. You blink incessantly trying to clear your vision, but the dust is pervasive. It gets into every crevice, every fold of skin, every exposed surface. You can feel it accumulating in your ears, a fine powder that dulls the sounds around you, creating a strange, muffled reality. The very air you breathe feels heavy, thick, and almost solid. It is as if you are swimming through it, each inhalation a conscious effort against its oppressive weight. The heat rises from the ground in waves, distorting the view, making the horizon shimmer and dance. You stare at it, sometimes hoping to see a change, a cloud, anything to break the monotony of the searing blue. But there is rarely anything. Just an endless expanse of sky, indifferent and vast. Your hands, once perhaps smooth or calloused from a different trade, are now raw, toughened instruments. The skin is thick, scarred, crisscrossed with tiny cuts and abrasions from the tools, from the rough earth, from the constant friction. Each movement of your fingers, each grip on a handle, sends a jolt of dull pain through the hardened flesh. But you ignore it. You must. The work does not stop for pain. The salt from your sweat forms white streaks on your clothing, an ever-present map of your body's struggle. It runs into your eyes, stinging fiercely, making them water even more. It coats your lips, leaving a dry, salty taste. Your clothes, once a rudimentary protection, are now soaked with perspiration, then dried stiff by the sun, then soaked again. They cling uncomfortably, chafing your skin with every movement, creating raw spots and small wounds that never seem to heal. You become intimately familiar with the symptoms of heat exhaustion. The dizziness, the nausea that churns in your empty stomach, the lightheadedness that threatens to topple you with every sudden movement. You learn to recognize these signs in others, too, in the sudden pallor, the slowing movements, the blank stare. And you learn, through grim example, the severe consequences of pushing too far, of collapsing under the sun's unmerciful gaze. You have seen it happen. You have seen men fall. The constant need to exert yourself under these conditions burns through your strength with terrifying speed. Every calorie consumed is immediately demanded by your labor, by your body's desperate attempt to regulate its temperature. You feel your energy reserves dwindling, your muscles growing heavy and unresponsive. Each lift of the shovel, each swing of the pick, becomes a monumental effort, a personal battle against encroaching fatigue. The sun is not just a light source, it is a taskmaster, a silent, omnipresent overseer. Its rays are whips, lashing down, urging you onward, draining you inch by agonizing inch. Your shadow, your sole companion, shrinks and stretches, a distorted reflection of your own suffering, always tied to you, never offering true escape. As the day wears on, the air cools almost imperceptibly, but the ground retains the day's accumulated heat, radiating it back upwards. The sun, finally, begins its slow descent, painting the western sky in hues of orange and purple. The silhouettes of the workers grow longer, stretching out across the excavated earth, finally offering a sense of depth and form. But even then the heat persists, a memory of the sun's fury, lingering long after it has dipped below the horizon. You stand for a moment, straightening your aching back, wiping the sweat and dust from your brow with a grimy hand. Your body hums with exhaustion, a deep, pervasive weariness that sinks into your very bones. But the day is done. For now. The cool breath of the approaching night is a benediction, a temporary reprieve. You are a sun-scorched silhouette yourself, your form etched against the fading light, a testament to endurance, a living monument to the forgotten labor that carved these arteries into the ancient world. You have felt the sun and the dust, the ache in your back, the burn in your muscles. You have experienced in a small way the individual toil. But pull back now, step away from the trench, ascend a nearby hillock, and look out over the vast, shimmering landscape. What you see will make your breath catch. It is not just a single stretch of ditch, but an unending line, disappearing into the hazy distance, a wound in the earth that seems to go on forever. And along that wound, spread out for miles, are not just a few dozen or a few hundred but thousands upon thousands of human beings. This is the true scale of the ancient canal projects. This is where the human mind struggles to grasp the reality. It is one thing to imagine a man with a shovel. It is an entirely different thing to imagine 100,000 men with shovels, all working simultaneously, all needing to be fed, watered, housed, and directed. This was the unimaginable challenge of organization that faced the rulers and engineers of the ancient world. They were not merely digging earth. They were orchestrating human lives on a scale that beggars belief. How do you even begin to assemble such a workforce? In many civilizations, the answer lay in a complex tapestry of labor systems. You might find yourself among seasonal workers, farmers whose land lay fallow after harvest, seeking an income to supplement their meager yields. These would be free men, perhaps, but bound by economic necessity, driven by the need to feed their families through the lean months. They arrived with their few possessions, perhaps a tattered blanket and a cooking pot, ready to offer their strength for a wage however small. Alongside them you might see conscripted laborers, men summoned from their villages by royal decree, their service a form of taxation or tribute to the state. These men had little choice. Failure to appear could mean severe punishment for themselves or their families. They were often provisioned by the state, receiving rations of grain, oil, and sometimes beer, but their freedom was curtailed, their lives dictated by the demands of the project. Their presence was a testament to the absolute power of the centralized authority, able to command vast numbers of its populace for monumental public works. And then there were the enslaved. Captured in war, bought in markets, or born into servitude, these individuals represented a permanent, forced labor pool. Their lives were not their own. They worked under the constant threat of the whip, their bodies pushed to the brink of collapse, their spirits crushed by the unending drudgery. You would see them, perhaps, identifiable by different markings or by the particular harshness of their overseers. They were the engine of many of these grand endeavors, their suffering a silent testament to the ambitions of empires. Imagine, for a moment, the sheer logistical nightmare of managing this diverse human tide. Picture the camps that would spring up along the canal route. Not just tents, but sometimes makeshift villages stretching for miles, housing tens of thousands. Where did the food come from for all these mouths? Grain, enormous quantities of it, had to be harvested, transported, stored, and then rationed out daily. Think of the supply chains stretching back to fertile plains, rivers teeming with barges and dusty caravan routes. Animals for meat, vegetables, oil, salt, even the wood for cooking fires and the clay for water jars. Every single item required immense planning and effort. Water, in particular, was a precious commodity, especially in arid regions where canals were often most needed. Drinking water had to be sourced, protected, and distributed. 1,000 thirsty workers can drain a well in hours. 10,000 need a constant, flowing supply. You would see water carriers, perhaps in an endless chain, bringing precious liquid from distant springs or existing rivers, often under the blazing sun, adding yet another layer of grueling labor to the project. The tools themselves posed another challenge. Tens of thousands of shovels, pickaxes, baskets, and sledges were needed. These were not indestructible. Stone tools dulled and broke. Bronze or iron tools, though more durable, still required constant repair and sharpening. You would find small workshops set up near the camps, blacksmiths hammering away at crude forges, repairing worn metal, while others fashioned new handles for broken picks. Each tool was a vital extension of human effort, and their maintenance was critical to the progress of the work. Who was in charge of all this? At the very top, an architect or chief engineer, a man of vision and perhaps terrifying authority, would oversee the grand design. Beneath him, a hierarchy of supervisors and overseers would stretch down to the individual work gangs. You might be assigned to a team of 10, led by a foreman whose word was law. Above him, a sectional supervisor, then a regional manager, all reporting up a chain of command that might culminate in a royal minister or even the pharaoh or emperor himself. Orders flowed down, reports flowed up, a constant stream of communication, often carried by runners or scribes, ensuring that the vast machine of labor kept moving. Discipline was paramount. With so many hands, idle hands could mean stagnation. You would hear the cracking of whips, the shouts of overseers, the constant urgings to push harder, to dig deeper. But alongside the coercion there might also be systems of reward. Extra rations for exceptional effort, a day of rest for a productive team, perhaps even a small sum of money or a promise of freedom for those who worked hardest. The carrot and the stick were both employed in varying degrees, depending on the nature of the labor and the ruthlessness of the administration. Every morning, long before the sun kissed the horizon, you would be roused. The camp would stir, a low hum of thousands waking, preparing for another day. Rations would be distributed, perhaps a simple meal of porridge or bread, eaten quickly as the first light appeared. Then you would march to your assigned section, the air thick with dust and the murmur of thousands of voices. The work began with the sun and continued until it dipped below the horizon, marked by the rhythmic clang of tools, the grunts of exertion, and the endless sifting of earth. Imagine the coordination required. One team digs. Another loads the excavated earth into baskets. A third carries those baskets to a dumping site, perhaps a growing mound that parallels the canal. A fourth team might be shoring up the sides of the trench, using timber or stone to prevent collapse. Each group had its specific task, its specific place in the grand, arduous ballet of excavation. The rhythm was established, maintained, and enforced. It was a human conveyor belt, powered by muscle and bone, stretching for miles. This was not simply digging. This was an act of human will, an assertion of control over nature, enabled by an unprecedented level of human organization. To move such astronomical quantities of earth with nothing more than basic tools and raw human power required a degree of logistical genius that we often overlook. They built not just canals but entire systems of management and supply, moving not just water but people, food, and materials across vast distances. When you look at the ancient canals or even their forgotten remnants, you are not just seeing a ditch in the ground. You are seeing the visible manifestation of a forgotten administrative triumph. You are seeing the echoes of thousands upon thousands of lives, meticulously organized, relentlessly driven, all focused on a single monumental engineering feat. Their names are lost to history, their individual stories unrecorded. But their collective effort, their legions of labor, carved the arteries of ancient civilizations, forever changing the landscape and the course of human history. You stand now on the dry, sun-baked plains between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, thousands of years before our time. This is Mesopotamia, the land that gave birth to cities and writing, and a place where the control of water was not merely a convenience, but the very essence of survival. Here, life itself flowed not just with the rivers, but through the arteries carved by human hands. Imagine this landscape for a moment. Picture the flat, wide expanse of land, stretching to the horizon. In the spring, the mighty rivers, fed by melting snows and distant mountains, would swell dramatically. They would burst their banks, inundating fields and villages in a chaotic, destructive deluge. Then just as suddenly the floods would recede, leaving behind a rich, fertile silt, yes, but also a scorching, parched earth for the rest of the year. The timing was unpredictable. The need was absolute. How do you harness such a force? How do you bring water to where it is needed when it is needed year after year? The answer lay beneath your feet in the very earth itself. It was a monumental idea, to tame the rivers, to redirect their life-giving waters through a carefully planned network of channels. These were not simply ditches. They were the meticulously engineered lifelines of an entire civilization, pathways designed to bring water from the unpredictable river to the thirsty fields, to the growing cities, to every household that depended on it. This vision, however grand, relied on one fundamental resource: human muscle. Countless pairs of hands, driven by necessity, by decree, by the simple rhythm of survival, would transform this landscape. You are one of those hands. You wake before the first blush of dawn, the air still cool and heavy with the promise of another searing day. Your body already aches from yesterday's toil, from the repetitive swing of a simple hoe. It is not made of shining metal, but often of hardened wood, perhaps tipped with a shard of obsidian or flint. Your hands, rough and calloused, grip the handle. A woven basket, heavy and unwieldy, sits beside you. This is your arsenal against the vastness of nature. You walk with hundreds, perhaps thousands of others. Men and women, young and old, their faces etched with the dust and sun, their bodies lean and strong from a life of unrelenting labor. They are farmers, citizens fulfilling their corvée duty to the state. They are prisoners of war, their lives now bound to the pickaxe and the basket. They are enslaved people, stripped of their freedom, compelled to contribute to the grand designs of their masters. Their individual identities are swallowed by the collective task. As the sun begins its relentless ascent, casting long shadows across the nascent canal, the work begins. The foreman, perhaps a local dignitary or a state-appointed overseer, barks orders. The rhythm of the work is hypnotic, relentless. The scrape of hose against the earth. The grunt of effort as a full basket of heavy, wet soil is lifted. The shuffling footsteps as you carry it to the growing embankment. Then the dull thud as you empty it, a small mountain of earth growing steadily, agonizingly slowly. Feel the strain in your shoulders, the burn in your muscles. The soil is heavy, often clay-rich, clinging to the tools and to your skin. It turns to thick, clinging mud if you are working near the water table, or to a choking dust if you are carving through drier ground. The air hangs thick with dust and the smell of sweat, damp earth, and human exertion. There is no shade, no respite from the sun that beats down with unmerciful intensity. You work in long, unbroken shifts. A simple meal of barley bread and perhaps some dried fish or dates is eaten quickly, fuel for the body, barely breaking the rhythm. Water, precious and rationed, is passed around in communal jars. Every drop counts. The scale of this undertaking is staggering. Imagine not just one ditch, but a vast, interconnected web. Main arteries, wide and deep, bringing water from the river. Smaller capillaries branching off, leading to individual fields. Drainage channels to prevent salinization of the precious topsoil. Each segment requires precision. The slope must be just right, gentle enough for the water to flow, but steep enough to prevent stagnation. Too shallow, and the water won't reach its destination. Too steep, and the banks will erode. Every shovelful, every basket of earth, is part of this intricate design. And the digging is never truly finished. The rivers, the very source of life, are also a constant threat. The rich silt that makes the land fertile also settles relentlessly in the channels. Without constant maintenance, the canals would quickly choke, becoming clogged with mud and debris. So, the cycle of digging and dredging, of clearing and reinforcing, is an unending one. Generations upon generations of workers performed this same grueling task year after year, century after century. Consider the organization required. To mobilize tens of thousands of people, to feed them, house them, equip them, and direct their labor across vast distances, was an administrative feat worthy of kings. Early Mesopotamian rulers understood that their power and the prosperity of their cities rested directly on the efficiency of their irrigation systems. They issued decrees, established laws concerning water rights and canal maintenance. They built vast granaries to store the surplus crops that these canals made possible, allowing their civilization to flourish, to support specialized craftsmen, priests, and soldiers. Without these muddy lifelines, there would be no grand ziggurats reaching for the sky. There would be no sprawling cities of Ur or Uruk. No intricate cuneiform tablets recording their laws, their myths, their history. The ability to control water created the very conditions for civilization itself to emerge in this harsh, yet potentially bountiful land. You feel the sun dipping low now, casting long shadows once more. The foreman's call signals the end of the day. Your back screams, your hands ache, your mind is dulled by the ceaseless repetition. You return to your simple dwelling, covered in the same earth you have spent the day moving. Tonight you will sleep deeply, utterly exhausted, only to rise and face the same task tomorrow. Your name will not be etched into any clay tablet. No monument will bear your likeness. But the earth itself remembers. Every ripple in the ancient landscape, every subtle depression that was once a mighty canal, is a testament to your unrecorded labor. The forgotten workers, the legions who moved mountains of mud with nothing but their hands and simple tools, built the foundations of one of the world's first great civilizations, one shovelful, one basketful at a time. Their enduring legacy is not carved in stone, but woven into the very fabric of the land they transformed. The land remembers your touch. It remembers the slow, deliberate work of countless hands, year after year, century after century. You are not merely a digger, you are a sculptor. Your canvas is the fertile black earth, your medium is the very water of the Nile itself. You do not carve grand statues or etch hieroglyphs onto temple walls. Your art is far more vast, far more subtle, and ultimately far more vital. You sculpt the landscape itself, coaxing life from the arid desert with the patient rhythm of your toil. Imagine the annual return of the Nile's life-giving flood. You stand on the edge of the rising waters, feeling the cool spray on your face, watching the river swell and spill over its banks. This is not a time of rest. It is a time of immense urgency, a race against the very force of nature you seek to harness. The previous season's canals are choked with silt, their banks eroded, their carefully constructed pathways obscured. The land, left fallow and dry, eagerly awaits the next infusion of moisture. As the flood begins to recede, leaving behind a rich, dark layer of topsoil, your work intensifies. You join hundreds, sometimes thousands of others, each an indispensable part of this vast living machine. The air buzzes with the low hum of collective effort, the rhythmic grunt of exertion, the slap of wet mud. You grip your tools, extensions of your own hands, simple yet profoundly effective. Your primary implement is the digging stick, often just a sturdy piece of wood, sometimes tipped with copper or hardened bronze for better penetration. You plunge it into the softened earth, breaking up the compacted soil, loosening it for easier removal. Beside you, others use a short-handled hoe, its broad blade scraping away the loose earth, pulling it towards them in small, manageable piles. Then comes the basket. Made of woven palm fibers or reeds, it is your constant companion, your bucket, your wheelbarrow. You scoop the mud into the basket, feeling its surprising weight, the cool, damp earth against your palms. You hoist it onto your shoulder or head, its weight pressing down, and carry it to the edge of the nascent canal, tipping it out to form the beginnings of an embankment. This is the ceaseless dance of digging and depositing, a ballet of back-breaking labor. Every shovelful, every basketful, is a conscious act of shaping. You learn to read the flow of water even when it is just a trickle. You instinctively know where the water will naturally want to go, and you work with that inclination, guiding it, deepening its path. You are not fighting the river. You are collaborating with it, channeling its immense power for the benefit of all. The initial cuts are shallow, guiding trenches. But over days, weeks, months, and indeed over generations, these mere scratches in the earth become deep, wide waterways. You learn to reinforce the banks, packing the mud down with your feet, hardening it under the relentless sun. You understand that a stable bank means a canal that will last longer, a channel that will deliver water reliably, without collapsing or overflowing in unintended places. This is a skill passed down from father to son, mother to daughter, an unspoken knowledge woven into the very fabric of your community. You watch the elders, observing the subtle ways they assess the soil, the precise angle they recommend for a slope, the best placement for a small diversionary channel. The patience required for this task is immense. You are not constructing a swift, modern dam or a concrete aqueduct. You are sculpting with organic materials, responding to the whims of the river and the challenges of the terrain. The work is slow, deliberate, and often feels endless. Yet, there is a profound satisfaction in seeing the water, previously held at bay, now flowing gracefully into a new channel, stretching further than it has ever gone before, transforming parched land into moist, dark soil ready for planting. This network of canals is not just about bringing water to fields. It is about extending life, literally. Before your efforts, much of the land beyond the immediate riverbanks was barren, a harsh, unforgiving desert. With each new meter of canal, with each successful irrigation, you are reclaiming territory from the wilderness, pushing back the boundaries of desolation. You are creating the very breadbasket of your civilization, ensuring that food will be plentiful, that your people will thrive. Think of the sheer scale of it all. It is not just one canal or 10 or 100. Over millennia, generations of workers like you created a vast, intricate arterial system that crisscrossed the Nile Valley. Main arteries, fed directly by the river, branched into smaller capillaries, leading to individual fields and basins. Sluice gates, often simple earthen barriers or wooden planks, allowed you to control the flow, ensuring each area received its fair share of precious water. You are a living part of this grand design, a crucial cog in the machinery of sustenance. The heat beats down relentlessly, baking the exposed earth in your skin. The mud dries on your body, flaking off as you move, a constant reminder of your labors. Insects buzz around you, attracted by the water and the sweat. Your muscles ache with a deep, persistent throb. But you continue. You continue because you know the vital importance of your work. You continue because your ancestors did and your children will. This is the rhythm of life along the Nile, a ceaseless cycle of effort and reward. Your artistry is silent, unheralded by inscription or statue. You do not paint on papyrus or carve in stone. You paint with water and mud, sketching the lines of life onto the broad canvas of Egypt. You are the patient sculptors of the Nile, your tools simple, your impact profound. The very landscape of ancient Egypt, its fertility, its ability to sustain millions, is your masterpiece. It is a testament to the quiet power of human hands, working in unison, transforming the raw elements of nature into a living, breathing miracle. Your work is not about glory or individual recognition. It is about the collective memory of the land, the enduring shape you give to the world around you. Each drop of water that flows through a canal you helped maintain, each grain of wheat that sprouts from an irrigated field, is a living tribute to your unrecorded legacy. You are the forgotten architects of abundance, the silent shapers of a civilization's destiny, one basketful of earth at a time, one patient, deliberate stroke of the digging stick after another. As the last grains of Egyptian sand settle around your feet, carried by the patient wind, you feel the pull of a different sun, a different soil. You journey eastward, across vast, ancient landscapes, to a place where another mighty river breathes life into a forgotten world. You are drawn to the Indus, a river whose currents carried the destinies of an equally grand, yet profoundly mysterious civilization. Here, the story of anonymous hands continues, written not in hieroglyphs or monumental tombs, but in the earth itself, in the silent, sculpted lines of ancient waterways. Imagine the land before you. Not the narrow ribbon of green bordered by desert that you saw in Egypt, but a sprawling, fertile plain, wide and flat, stretching further than the eye can see. The air is heavy, sometimes humid, sometimes dry, carrying the scent of rich earth and distant spices. Overhead, the sun beats down with an intense, unyielding heat, baking the vast plains of what we now call Pakistan and northwestern India. This is the stage for the Indus Valley civilization, a society that even today holds many of its secrets close. But one truth is undeniable: its very existence, its incredible scale, its astonishing longevity, rested on the invisible threads woven by forgotten workers. The Indus River, far from being a gentle, predictable annual flood like the Nile, was a force of nature both generous and capricious. Its waters, fed by the colossal glaciers of the Himalayas and the furious monsoons, could swell dramatically, carving new paths, inundating vast areas, or just as easily shift course, leaving once fertile lands parched and barren. To tame such a river, to coax consistent life from its unpredictable bounty, required an understanding of hydrology that was nothing short of genius. It demanded colossal, organized effort. It demanded canals. Not just simple ditches, but sophisticated networks designed to capture the monsoon rains, divert river floodwaters, and distribute them with precision across hundreds of miles of agricultural land. These were the arteries that pumped life into cities like Harappa and Mohenjo-Daro, allowing them to feed populations of tens of thousands. Picture yourself now not just observing but participating. You stand on the edge of a newly marked channel, the ground baked hard by the sun. Around you, dozens, hundreds of others, their bodies lean and strong, glistening with sweat. Your tools are basic: a heavy digging stick, perhaps tipped with stone or hardened wood, a woven basket, sturdy and wide. The air is filled with the rhythmic thud of sticks striking earth, the scrape of tools, the grunts of exertion, the collective sigh as a basket is filled and lifted. You lean into the digging stick, pushing it deep into the compacted soil, leveraging your weight, feeling the muscles in your arms and shoulders burn. The earth resists, stubbornly clinging to its ancient rest, but you persist. Chip by chip, clod by clod, you break it apart. Then, you squat, scooping the loose soil into your basket, feeling the rough weave against your hands, the weight settling in your arms. You straighten, carry the heavy load to the edge of the growing embankment, and tip it out, adding your small contribution to the rising wall of earth. Multiply this single act, this single basketful, by hundreds of thousands. Imagine not just a day's work but weeks, months, years. Generation after generation, these unseen workers shaped the landscape. The scale of these projects was immense. Archaeological surveys reveal remnants of ancient canal systems stretching for miles, designed to capture runoff from seasonal rivers, redirect floodwaters, and create vast agricultural zones. These were not temporary structures. They were engineered with an understanding of topography and water flow that speaks to an inherited wisdom, passed down from one generation of diggers to the next. You are part of an immense human machine fueled by a collective purpose, shaping the very ground beneath your feet. This incredible, painstaking labor was the bedrock of Indus Valley prosperity. It allowed for vast surpluses of wheat, barley, and other crops, feeding not only the farmers but also the artisans, the traders, the administrators who made up the complex urban centers. The food security provided by these meticulously maintained irrigation systems freed a significant portion of the population from subsistence farming, enabling specialization, innovation, and trade networks that stretched from Mesopotamia to the Persian Gulf. You, the silent digger, are not merely moving dirt. You are enabling the potter to throw his clay, the weaver to spin his thread, the merchant to load his goods onto boats that ply the river you have helped to tame. You are the unseen hand in every transaction, every meal, every aspect of daily life within these sophisticated cities. Unlike the Egyptian records which often depicted pharaohs overseeing grand projects, or the Mesopotamian tablets detailing kings' achievements, the Indus Valley civilization offers a different, more enigmatic picture. There are no grand palaces dominating the landscape, no colossal statues of rulers, no elaborate texts praising individual leaders. This suggests a society perhaps more communal, less centralized in its authority, or at least one whose leaders chose not to monumentalize themselves in the same way. The grandest monuments here are not temples to gods or tombs for kings, but the cities themselves and the vast networks of infrastructure that sustain them. The focus appears to have been on collective well-being, on shared prosperity, on the functional elegance of an entire civilization. And in this context, your work, the work of countless hands, takes on an even greater significance. You are not building for a king but for a community, for a way of life. These canals, these carefully constructed embankments, these reservoirs, are the invisible threads that bound the Indus Valley together. They are not threads of silk or gold, but threads of sweat and earth, of shared labor and common purpose. They are the unseen connections between city and countryside, between the monsoon rains and the brimming granaries. You feel these threads in the calloused palms of your hands, in the ache in your back, in the camaraderie of your fellow workers. These threads are the very essence of a civilization that prioritized order, sanitation, and shared resources. Imagine the meticulous planning required, the coordination of thousands of people across vast distances. There was no single overseer recorded, no grand inscription. The planning existed in the minds of those who understood the land, the flow of water, and the immense power of human cooperation. It was a silent agreement, an unspoken pact with the land and with each other, to sustain life through sheer persistent effort. The Indus Valley civilization, for all its sophistication, eventually faded. Rivers shifted, climates changed, and the great cities were eventually abandoned, leaving behind meticulously planned street grids, advanced drainage systems, and undeciphered script. But even in their abandonment, the legacy of your labor, the legacy of these invisible threads, remains. The very topography of the land, altered and shaped by centuries of digging and building, still bears faint traces. The echoes of your work resonate in the dry riverbeds, in the subtle elevations that once marked a canal's course. You are part of a profound mystery, a civilization that achieved so much with seemingly so little emphasis on individual glory. Your name may never be known, your face never carved in stone, but the world you helped create, the world you watered and fed, was one of the most remarkable human achievements. Your quiet, relentless work allowed millions to thrive, to trade, to live in organized harmony for nearly 1,000 years. It is a testament to the enduring power of collective human will silently shaping the world, one stroke, one basket, one invisible thread at a time. The quiet perseverance you represent, the tireless effort of countless hands across generations, is not merely an isolated act within a single era. It is the very bedrock upon which civilizations rise and fall, a continuous current beneath the turbulent waves of dynastic change. You stand in the long shadow of history, a shadow cast by the monumental ambitions of kings and emperors, but also by the silent, unyielding work of people like you. Imagine the river of time, flowing through vast stretches of land and history. On its surface, the grand barges of empires glide, their banners snapping in the wind, carrying the weight of royal decrees, armies, and tribute. Dynasties bloom and wither like seasonal crops, their names etched into monuments or whispered into legends. One ruler builds magnificent temples, another wages glorious wars, a third brings an era of peace. Each claims dominion, each seeks to leave an indelible mark. But beneath the surface, a deeper, more profound current flows. This is the current of your labor, the constant, unglamorous effort that truly sustains the world. While the thrones of power shift and the faces of authority change, the fundamental need for water, for sustenance, for connection remains. You are a part of that enduring, essential continuity. Consider the landscape before you. You have toiled here, or your ancestors have, or the ancestors of others who shared your quiet determination. Perhaps the first channels were mere scratches in the earth, guiding floodwaters to parched fields. Then, with each passing generation, with each new ruler who grasped the power of organized labor, those scratches deepened, widened, grew into intricate networks. You can almost feel the rhythmic swing of the pickaxe, the scraping sound of the basket, the steady march of feet carrying earth away, repeated for centuries. You see a new king ascend to power. He is young, perhaps eager to prove his worth. His pronouncements echo through the city, promising a golden age of prosperity and abundance. He speaks of grand new irrigation projects, of restoring ancient channels, of bringing water to distant lands. To the people, these are inspiring words, visions of a better future. To you, they are simply a continuation of the work, a new name attached to a task as old as settled life itself. You might be assigned to clear a canal that has silted up over decades, a channel originally dug by your great-grandparents. The mud is thick, heavy, sometimes reaching your waist. You work alongside others, your bodies moving in a synchronized rhythm, a human chain of effort. The sun beats down or the wind whips dust around you, but the work goes on. You are not building something entirely new, but rather maintaining the lifeblood of the land, coaxing it back to its original purpose. This is the cycle of maintenance, repair, and revitalization that underpins the stability of any great civilization. Then there are the ambitious new ventures. A grand canal is planned, perhaps spanning miles, connecting two distant rivers or bringing water across a desert expanse. The scale of the project is immense, requiring thousands, sometimes tens of thousands, of workers. You might be among them, contributing your strength, your knowledge of the earth, to this monumental undertaking. You know the weight of the stone, the feel of the earth giving way beneath your shovel, the subtle slope required to ensure a steady flow. You are building not just a ditch but a pathway for life itself. And you know deep in your bones that this work will endure. It will serve the current dynasty, yes, but it will also serve the next and the one after that. The names of the rulers who commissioned it may fade from memory, their monuments crumble, but the essential artery you helped create will continue to nourish the land, supporting countless generations of farmers, merchants, and families. Consider the sheer resilience required for such a continuous undertaking. Droughts come, floods devastate, wars rage, borders shift. Yet, through it all, the work of managing water, of maintaining the lifelines of civilization, persists. When one empire collapses, often due to internal strife or external invasion, the infrastructure you helped build might fall into disrepair. Canals silt up, dams crack, fields return to scrubland. But then, a new power emerges. A new dynasty rises from the ashes of the old, or perhaps an invading force settles and seeks to establish its own enduring presence. What is one of their first priorities? To restore order, yes, but crucially to restore the flow of water. They understand, as all successful rulers have, that the prosperity and stability of their reign depend utterly on a reliable water supply. So the cycle begins anew. You or your children or your grandchildren are called upon once more. The tools might be slightly different, the overseers speak a new dialect, but the fundamental task remains unchanged. You clear the accumulated debris, shore up the crumbling banks, redirect the river's course. You are, in effect, resurrecting the very arteries of the land, bringing life back to dormant fields, rekindling the spark of civilization. This enduring commitment to water management across dynastic shifts highlights a profound truth. The practical necessities of life often transcend political upheavals. The farmer still needs water for his crops, the city still needs water for its people, the trader still needs canals for his goods. These are the fundamental drivers that compel successive rulers, despite their differing ideologies or origins, to invest in and maintain the essential infrastructure you helped create. You are a silent witness to this grand flow. You see the pride in a new ruler's eyes as they inaugurate a restored canal, claiming its bounty as a testament to their wisdom and power. Yet, you also know the generations of anonymous effort that truly underlie such achievements. The great engineering feats of antiquity, the sprawling irrigation systems that transformed barren lands into granaries, are not merely the legacy of individual monarchs. They are the cumulative product of millions of individual efforts, sustained over centuries, woven into the very fabric of dynastic succession. Think of the sheer scale of time involved. A single dynasty might last for 200 years or even 500. During that span, multiple generations of workers would have been born, lived, and died, all contributing to the same ongoing project. Then, imagine that dynasty replaced by another, and the work continues for another 500 years. You are experiencing the deep time of human endeavor, where individual lives blend into a vast river of collective action. The stories of individual kings and queens, their triumphs and their tragedies, are often meticulously recorded. Their names are etched in stone, their deeds celebrated in epic poems. But the stories of the people who dug the canals, who built the foundations, who toiled day in and day out to make those empires possible, are largely unwritten. Their names are lost to the sands of time. Yet their impact is perhaps even more profound, more enduring. The very landscape you inhabit, the subtle rise and fall of the earth, the patterns of settlement, the fertility of the soil itself, have all been shaped by this continuous, unseen labor. The lines of ancient canals, now perhaps faint depressions in the earth, still speak of ancient courses, of water that once flowed. They are ghost rivers, etched into the memory of the land, testaments to the continuous engagement of human hands with the earth. You are part of a lineage of anonymous builders, a silent fraternity whose work outlasted the pomp and circumstance of countless reigns. Your contribution is not in the grand pronouncements or the shifting tides of power, but in the steady rhythmic pulse of effort that sustains civilization through its many transformations. You are the enduring force, the quiet engine beneath the engine of history. This is the true grand flow of dynasties, a constant, unwavering current of human labor channeling water, shaping land, and ultimately enabling the very possibility of complex human society, regardless of who sat on the throne, or which banner flew highest in the wind. Your work, generation after generation, is the constant in an ever-changing world, the lifeblood flowing through the veins of time itself. You might conjure an image when you hear of Roman waterworks. Perhaps it is the majestic arches of the Pont du Gard, or the long, elegant lines of an aqueduct marching across a parched landscape. These iconic structures are undeniably impressive, a testament to Roman engineering prowess, and they stand as powerful symbols of a civilization that mastered the flow of water. But to focus solely on the aqueducts is to miss a vast, intricate, and often unseen network of channels that truly underpinned Roman society. It is to overlook the true scale of their ambition, and more importantly, the immense human effort required to shape an entire empire through earth and water. Imagine now not the lofty arches against the sky, but the earth beneath your feet. The Romans were not content simply to bring water to their cities. They sought to control, redirect, and manage water across entire regions. This went far beyond drinking water. They built an astonishing array of canals and drainage systems, often through terrain that would challenge modern machinery, let alone the picks, shovels, and sheer muscle of ancient laborers. You are there, standing at the edge of what was once a vast, mosquito-ridden marshland, perhaps the infamous Pontine marshes south of Rome. For centuries, this area was a breeding ground for disease, rendering fertile land unusable. But the Romans saw not an insurmountable obstacle, but a resource to be tamed, a potential breadbasket waiting to be reclaimed. The solution was not an aqueduct, but a sprawling network of drainage canals, designed to systematically dry out the land. Feel the damp earth under your heavy leather boots, the relentless hum of insects in the humid air. The scent of decaying vegetation hangs heavy, mingled with the sweat of thousands. Your task here is not to lift stone into magnificent arches, but to dig. You are part of a legion of workers, many of them slaves, others prisoners, some perhaps even landless free men seeking meager pay. Day after day you carve channels into the soft, yielding muck. The mud clings to your tools, heavy and stubborn. Each shovelful is a triumph of sheer will over matter. This work was dirty, dangerous, and ceaseless. The canals had to be precisely engineered, even in such desolate places. Gradients had to be calculated to ensure continuous flow, preventing stagnation and allowing the land to drain effectively. Imagine the simple tools: iron-tipped wooden spades, sturdy picks, woven baskets to carry away the excavated earth. You work shoulder to shoulder, a rhythmic grunt accompanying each thrust of the spade, each heave of the basket. The sun beats down mercilessly, or the chill wind whips across the open plain. Yet the channels grow inch by agonizing inch, forming an ever-expanding grid across the landscape. These drainage canals transformed entire regions, turning swamps into arable land, making huge tracts of territory productive for agriculture. The grain that fed the sprawling population of Rome, the wine that filled its amphory, the olive oil that fueled its lamps, much of it was grown on land made fertile by the relentless, anonymous labor of those who dug these forgotten channels. Their work was as vital to the empire's sustenance as any military victory, yet their names are lost to time. But Roman canals were not just for drainage. Consider another monumental undertaking: the attempted draining of Lake Fucine in central Italy. This massive inland lake was prone to devastating floods, inundating fertile valleys and disrupting communities. The Emperor Claudius decided to eliminate this threat by digging a tunnel, an emissarium, over 6 kilometers long through solid rock, to divert the lake's waters to the river Liris. Step into the darkness with those workers. The air is thick with dust, the clang of picks against rock reverberates painfully in the enclosed space. You are deep underground, far from the sun and sky, guided by the flickering light of oil lamps. Water seeps from the rock face, making the ground slippery and treacherous. Cave-ins are a constant threat. Your arms ache, your back is perpetually sore. The rock yields slowly, begrudgingly, to the force of hammer and chisel. This was not a quick project. It took over 11 years and the continuous labor of tens of thousands of men. Some accounts say up to 30,000 at its peak. It was an engineering marvel, not a grand bridge, but a subterranean artery, a testament to raw human endurance. Beyond agriculture and flood control, canals served a critical role in Roman transportation. While roads carried goods overland, waterways offered a more efficient and less labor-intensive means of moving heavy or bulky materials. You might find yourself on a towpath, straining at a rope alongside an ox, pulling a barge laden with stone or timber along a purpose-built navigation canal. Imagine the Portus Augusti, the massive artificial harbor constructed by Claudius and Nero near Ostia, Rome's primary port. This complex included not only docks and warehouses, but also canals that connected the harbor directly to the Tiber River, and even an elaborate system of channels to prevent the river from silting up the harbor entrance. You are among the thousands of dock workers and canal laborers, constantly dredging, maintaining, and operating this vital nexus of trade, ensuring the lifeblood of the empire could flow unhindered to the capital. These weren't just grand projects either. Across the empire, smaller, localized canals served a myriad of purposes. In mining regions, channels were dug to divert rivers for hydraulic mining, where powerful jets of water would wash away overburden to expose mineral veins. Or perhaps you are involved in building a canal to feed a watermill, harnessing the power of a flowing stream to grind grain for a local community. The Roman military, renowned for its engineering capabilities, also employed canal building extensively. You might be part of a legion, digging a canal to bypass rapids on a river, allowing your supply barges to proceed unhindered into enemy territory. Or perhaps you are constructing a defensive moat, a water barrier to protect a newly established fort. These were channels born of necessity, forged in the crucible of military logistics and strategic planning. The sheer volume of earth moved by hand to create these networks is almost incomprehensible. Thousands upon thousands of kilometers of channels, varying in width and depth, crisscrossed the Roman world. Each meter was excavated by the swing of a pick, the thrust of a spade, the scrape of a basket. It was a cumulative effort spanning centuries, an ongoing, colossal transformation of the landscape. These forgotten channels are the true sinews of the Roman Empire, as vital and extensive as their famous roads. They enabled agriculture to flourish, prevented catastrophic floods, facilitated trade, and even powered nascent industries. Yet they lacked the immediate visual grandeur of a soaring aqueduct or the enduring solidity of a paved road. They are often hidden, overgrown, or simply filled in by the passage of time, their purpose forgotten by all but a few archaeologists. But their legacy endures. The patterns of land use in many parts of Italy, France, Spain, and beyond still bear the faint imprint of these ancient waterways. The very fertility of some plains, the prevention of once regular floods, the ancient routes of commerce, all owe a debt to the anonymous hands that reshaped the earth with picks and shovels. You are one of those hands. Your work, though unseen and uncelebrated, was fundamental. It was the unglamorous, back-breaking reality beneath the marble facades and imperial triumphs. It was the constant, unwavering application of human effort year after year, generation after generation, that truly powered an empire. These channels were more than just conduits for water. They were arteries of civilization, painstakingly carved into the very flesh of the earth. They represent not just the engineering genius of a few, but the collective, relentless will of millions of forgotten individuals whose quiet labor allowed an empire to thrive. Their story is written not in stone monuments, but in the contours of the land itself, in the ghost-like traces of water that once flowed, and the silent testament of fields made fertile and cities sustained. You feel the sun beating down on your bare back. It is not a gentle warmth, but a relentless hammer, driving sweat from every pore. The dust, fine and gritty, cakes your skin, mixing with the perspiration to form a muddy film that irritates every scratch and bite. The air is thick with it, tasting of dry earth and exertion. Each breath you take is a conscious effort, pulling in that particulate matter, feeling it catch in your throat. The tool in your hands is a crude instrument, heavy and unforgiving. Perhaps a pickaxe, its metal head dull from countless impacts, its wooden handle worn smooth by the grip of your calloused palms. Or perhaps a broad-bladed shovel, its edge forever blunted by rock and stubborn clay. There are no sophisticated machines here, no powerful engines to lessen the burden. Only muscle, bone, and the simple leverage of wood and iron. You swing the pick, bringing it down with all the force you can muster. The impact sends a jolt up your arms, vibrating through your shoulders, rattling your teeth. A small chunk of earth breaks away, or perhaps a sharp crack indicates you have struck something harder, a hidden stone, a root system that fights back with surprising tenacity. Then the shovel follows, scooping up the loosened material, heaving it onto a basket or a simple sack. Each load feels heavier than the last, a dead weight that saps your strength with every lift. This is your rhythm. Pick, swing, impact, shovel, scoop, heave. Repeat. Hour after hour, day after day, week after week. The sheer monotony is as grinding as the physical labor itself. Your mind wanders, tries to find solace in the drone of cicadas or the distant cry of a bird, but it always returns to the task at hand. The ditch before you seems endless, stretching into an impossibly distant horizon, yet it deepens inch by painful inch. Your companions work beside you, a silent brotherhood and sisterhood of toil. Their faces are etched with the same fatigue, the same grim determination. Their clothes are torn, stained with earth and sweat, barely distinguishable from the ground they are tearing apart. You hear their grunts of effort, their ragged breathing, the occasional cough that cuts through the rhythmic thud of picks. Sometimes a shared glance, a small nod, acknowledges the unspoken camaraderie born of shared hardship. The sun climbs higher, then begins its slow descent, but the work does not cease. Foreman's shouts echo across the work site, urging greater speed, demanding more from bodies that are already pushed to their limits. There are no breaks for idleness. Food, when it comes, is meager, perhaps a handful of dried figs, a piece of coarse bread, a sip of sour wine or brackish water. Just enough to keep the engine running, but never enough to truly replenish the fuel. The pain is a constant companion. It begins in your lower back, a dull ache that intensifies with every bend and straighten. It spreads to your shoulders, a knot of burning muscle. Your hands, raw and blistered, throb with every movement. Even your feet, encased in worn sandals or wrapped in rags, ache from standing on uneven ground, from carrying the weight of your own body plus the burden of the earth you move. By the time the call to stop finally comes, your entire being screams for rest. Sleep, when it comes, is a surrender to oblivion, a temporary escape from the relentless demands of your muscles. Yet, tomorrow the sun will rise again and you will return to the ditch. The canal will not dig itself. Who are you, this laborer in the vast ancient world? You might be a slave, your very existence owned by another. Your identity stripped away, your efforts extracted through force and fear. You might be a conscript, pressed into service by an emperor's decree, a farmer taken from your fields to serve the state, your family left to fend for themselves. Or you might be one of the truly free, yet so impoverished that the only way to earn a crust of bread is to offer your body to the most grueling work imaginable. In all these cases, your individual name, your personal story, is irrelevant to the grand project. You are simply one of many, a unit of labor, a means to an end. Think of the numbers. To carve a single mile of canal, perhaps 30 feet wide and 10 feet deep, through solid earth with these rudimentary tools. Imagine the cubic yards of soil and rock that must be moved. A single person, even a strong one, might move only a few cubic yards a day. Multiply that by the hundreds of miles, the thousands of miles, of canals that crisscrossed ancient landscapes. The sheer scale of the effort required an army, not of soldiers but of diggers. Tens of thousands. Hundreds of thousands. Over generations. Their lives were short, often brutal. Accidents were common. A cave-in, a slip of the pick, a falling rock. Disease spread quickly through crowded work camps, exacerbated by poor nutrition and constant exposure. The wear and tear on the body was immense, leading to chronic pain, crippled joints, and an early demise. The promise of old age was a luxury few could afford to dream of. And what record remains of these lives? Almost none. The architects are sometimes remembered, their names etched on grand inscriptions. The emperors who ordered the work are celebrated in statues and histories. But the men and women who actually moved the earth, whose sweat and blood literally nourished the soil, their names are swallowed by time. They are the voiceless multitude, their existence acknowledged only through the silent testament of the landscape they reshaped. Their legacy is not a monument to their individual heroism, but a collective, almost invisible monument to sheer persistence. You drink water from an aqueduct they helped build. You eat bread from fields watered by channels they dug. You travel roads made possible by trade routes they opened. Their lives, though unrecorded, are woven into the very fabric of ancient civilization. You continue to dig. The sun tracks across the sky. The pick swings. The shovel lifts. Each movement is a small contribution, a tiny chip of effort added to a monumental undertaking. You do not see the completed canal, perhaps. You may die before its waters flow. But you are part of it. You are the hands that built the foundations of empires, even if those empires never knew your name. It is a profound anonymity, isn't it? To labor with such intensity, to sacrifice so much, and yet to leave no personal trace in the historical record. No grand tombstone. No epic poem. No mention in a king's chronicle. Your existence is simply a statistic, an uncounted number in the vast ledger of human endeavor. But your ache, the burning in your muscles, the stiffness in your joints, these are very real. These are your personal records inscribed not on parchment or stone, but on the very cells of your body. Your body remembers the strain, the repetitive motion, the impact of the pick against the unyielding earth. It holds the memory of every scoop of soil, every haul of mud, every drop of sweat. Imagine the sheer physical stamina. You might begin this work as a young man or woman, your body strong and supple. But within a few years the signs of age and wear would be evident. Your back would permanently stoop. Your hands would be gnarled, your fingernails broken and thick. Your gait would be slow, perhaps a limp from an old injury. Your face would be weathered, far beyond your chronological years. You would carry the burden of the canal in your very bones. And yet there was purpose. Perhaps not a grand, philosophical purpose, but the immediate, vital purpose of survival. Digging meant food. Digging meant your family might eat. Digging meant a chance, however small, at a slightly better future for your children, if you were fortunate enough to have them. This work, for all its brutality, was often the only pathway available. It was a choice born of necessity, a stark reality in a world with few safety nets. Consider the landscape before you began. It was wild, untamed. Perhaps a meandering river, prone to flooding, or a barren stretch of land crying out for irrigation. Now, under your hands and the hands of thousands like you, a new line emerges. A straight, deliberate cut across the terrain. This is not natural. This is human will expressed through sheer back-breaking force. This is the imposition of order upon chaos, the bending of nature to the needs of civilization. The sounds of the worksite, the rhythmic thud of the picks, the scrape of shovels, the creak of wooden levers or simple carts carrying away the excavated earth, the shouts of foremen, sometimes accompanied by the crack of a whip, the low murmur of exhausted voices, the distant laughter of children from a nearby village, a sound that might pierce the monotony with a pang of longing. Or perhaps just the relentless, oppressive silence broken only by the work itself. And the smells. The pungent odor of damp earth, freshly turned. The dry, acrid scent of dust. The sharp tang of sweat. The smoke from small cooking fires in the evening. The faint, earthy smell of human waste, a constant companion in rudimentary sanitation. These sensory details paint a picture more vivid than any written record, a truly immersive experience of their daily lives. You are not building a pyramid, a structure that would stand for millennia, announcing the name of a pharaoh to eternity. You are digging a channel, a flowing line in the earth, designed for utility rather than glory. Its beauty is functional. Its purpose is sustenance. And yet, its impact is arguably more profound than many monuments. It feeds a population. It transports goods. It connects communities. It empowers an empire. And for all of this your name is lost. Your achievements are collective, absorbed into the grand narrative of the civilization you served. But in the quiet hours as you rub your aching muscles or drift into a fitful sleep, you know what you have done. You know the effort, the pain, the sacrifice. You are the silent architect of abundance, the forgotten engine of progress. Your story is not shouted from the rooftops, but whispers from the earth itself, in the soil you turned, the stones you moved, and the water that now flows where once there was only dry land. Your back aches, but the land remembers. The sun sets, painting the sky in fiery hues of orange and purple. You look back at the deepening trench, a dark scar across the landscape. Another day done. Another infinitesimal step closer to completion. Your body is heavy, but there is a strange, profound sense of accomplishment in the bone-deep weariness. This is what it means to build. This is what it means to be forgotten. But not entirely, not when someone stops to consider the silent labor behind the grand narratives. You are here, in the dirt, under the ancient sun, your efforts etched not in your name, but in the enduring shape of the world. The world you are shaping, scoop by painstaking scoop, is more than just a ditch in the earth. It is a profound resculpting of the very planet. You see the immediate, tangible result of your day's labor, the deepening of the trench, the piled earth on its banks. But what you are truly building, what your hands are forging with relentless persistence, is an unseen foundation. It is a testament to human will that will endure for centuries, often hidden from casual sight, yet fundamental to the lives that will follow. Think of the sheer, unimaginable volume. Imagine not just this one section where your pickaxe rings against stubborn soil, but the entire length of the planned canal. Miles upon miles of it, stretching like a scar or a lifeline across the land, depending on your perspective. Each grain of sand, each pebble, each clod of earth that passes through your hands and the hands of countless others, contributes to a monumental displacement. It is an act of geological engineering, performed with the most basic of tools. You might be using a simple digging stick hardened in fire to loosen the earth. Or perhaps a bronze or iron hoe, its edge dulled by countless impacts. The soil is then scooped into baskets, woven from reeds or palm fronds, or sometimes carried on stretched animal hides. You fill your basket, heave it onto your shoulder or head, and walk it to the ever-growing spoil heaps. The cycle is endless, repetitive, and deeply physical. One basket, then another. Hour after hour. Day after day. Season after season. The sun beats down, the dust chokes, the muscles burn. Yet, with each deposit, the earth itself begins to change. What you are creating is not merely a channel for water. It is a new topography. The very contours of the landscape are being subtly, then dramatically altered. The river that once meandered capriciously, flooding lands unpredictably, will soon be guided, controlled, made subservient to human need. The desert fringe, once barren and unforgiving, will drink from your handiwork and bloom. This transformation is so fundamental that future generations will simply accept it as natural, forgetting the immense human effort that brought it into being. Consider the ground beneath your feet. The layers of history it holds. When you dig, you are not just removing earth. You are uncovering the past, exposing strata that have lain undisturbed for millennia. But more importantly, you are laying down a new layer, one composed of your sweat, your labor, and the displaced soil. This layer, the very structure of the canal, will itself become a historical stratum. Future archaeologists, centuries from now, might one day carefully excavate a forgotten section of this waterway, marveling at its construction, perhaps never truly grasping the scale of the individual human effort it represented. For these ancient canals, unlike grand pyramids or towering temples, rarely bore the names of their builders, nor were they adorned with detailed friezes depicting the workers. Their purpose was purely functional, their beauty found in the life they sustained rather than their aesthetic form. They were utilitarian masterpieces, designed to vanish into the fabric of daily life, to become so integral that their presence was simply assumed. They were the silent arteries of civilization, pumping lifeblood into the fields, sustaining cities and enabling trade. Sometimes a canal would fall into disuse. Perhaps a new river course emerged, or political fortunes shifted, or the climate subtly changed. Over time, the desert winds would carry sand, rain would wash down silt, and vegetation would creep in. Gradually, the banks would crumble, the channel would fill, and the once vital waterway would disappear beneath the shifting sands of time. It would become an unseen foundation, a ghost of its former self, its presence hinted at only by subtle depressions in the land, or by the unexpected fertility of an ancient agricultural zone long after the water stopped flowing. But even when buried, its influence could persist. An ancient canal bed, filled with sediment, might still represent a geological weakness, a natural path for future water flow, or a convenient depression for a new road. Its very ghost could shape future developments, an invisible hand guiding the choices of people centuries removed from its original creation. The land itself remembers the channels carved into its surface, holding the memory of that shaping in its very topography, even when the human memory has faded. You are part of this profound, ongoing process. You are the hands that sculpt the future by wrestling with the earth of the past. The scale of this endeavor can feel overwhelming when you are merely one person with one basket. But when you lift your gaze, when you imagine the collective effort of thousands, perhaps tens of thousands, working concurrently along the vast length of the project, the true magnitude of this unseen foundation begins to reveal itself. Each stroke of the pick, each shovel full of earth, is a tiny, essential act of creation, building something far greater than any one individual. Consider the technology of it all. No bulldozers, no excavators, no modern surveying equipment. Only rudimentary tools, the power of human muscle, and an innate understanding of hydraulics and engineering, often passed down through generations. The knowledge required to plan such a massive undertaking, to ensure the correct gradient for water flow, to anticipate erosion, to build sluices and diversion dams, was immense. But the physical execution of that plan rested squarely on the shoulders of individuals like you. Your work transforms not just the land but the very patterns of human life. Where people once depended on the fickle rains, they can now rely on the steady flow of water for irrigation. This stability allows for larger populations, the growth of cities, the development of specialized trades beyond basic subsistence farming. The very fabric of society is woven from the threads of water and earth that you are so laboriously intertwining. You are creating the conditions for civilization to flourish, quite literally from the ground up. The weight of this responsibility, though often unspoken, is palpable. The success or failure of the harvest, the prosperity of a community, the very survival of thousands, can depend on the integrity of the canal you are helping to build. It is an immense burden, carried not by kings or priests, but by the calloused hands and aching backs of the laborers. You are the unsung heroes of hydroengineering, the anonymous architects of sustenance. And when the work is finally complete, when the water flows freely and the fields green, your role too shifts. You may move on to another project, or return to your village, or simply fade back into the rhythm of agricultural life. The canal will remain an integral part of the landscape, serving its purpose without fanfare. Its origin story, the story of its creation through brute force and sheer will slowly recede into myth, then into oblivion. Yet your legacy is undeniably there. It is in the ripe grain swaying in the breeze, in the cool drink of water drawn from a well, in the bustling market of a town that owes its existence to reliable irrigation. It is in the very possibility of settled, complex human life in regions that would otherwise remain desolate. This is the ultimate unseen foundation, the profound and lasting impact of countless individual efforts, aggregated into a force that shapes societies and cultures for millennia. You walk away from the finished segment, perhaps pausing to watch the clear water rush through the channel you helped to form. It is a moment of quiet triumph. The vastness of the project still looms, more segments to dig, more earth to move. But this completed section stands as a testament not just to the vision of a ruler or the ingenuity of an engineer, but to the raw, unyielding power of human labor. The sun continues its slow journey across the sky, casting long shadows across the landscape. You know that within a few generations, the story of this canal will be less about the struggle of its creation and more about the bounty it brings. The names of those who ordered its construction might be etched into stone, but your name and the names of your fellow laborers will be etched only into the earth itself. And even there, time and nature will conspire to smooth away the sharp edges of memory, making your contribution an invisible, yet indispensable part of the world. It becomes the silent bedrock upon which future generations will unknowingly build their lives. A foundation of transformed earth, shaped by hands long turned to dust. A whisper from the past, carried on the very water that flows through channels you helped to create, speaking of forgotten labor, and the enduring power of human effort beneath the sands of time. Yet the power does not vanish. It transforms, flowing through the very veins of the land you helped to create. Centuries pass, millennia unfold, and the desert dust settles and rises again, but the fundamental wisdom of redirecting water, the profound impact of that first shovel, persists. You find yourself standing at the edge of a vibrant green field, perhaps in a valley thousands of miles from where your own hands once worked. The air is warm, thick with the scent of damp earth and growing things. A narrow channel, barely a ditch, runs alongside your feet, its waters clear and steady, reflecting the endless blue of the sky. This modest waterway, this seemingly simple furrow, is not merely a conduit for water. It is a living, breathing testament. It is an echo, a resonance across time, directly linking you to the tireless, anonymous laborers of the distant past. Feel the cool, damp earth beneath your sandals. Listen to the gentle gurgle of the water as it skirts past roots and stones, making its journey. This sound, this exact sound of water coaxed from its wild path into a domesticated flow, has been a constant companion to humanity for as long as civilization itself. It is the sound of life, of sustenance, of an ancient promise fulfilled day after day, year after year. This stream might not be the exact canal you labored to build. Perhaps your original channel has long since been subsumed by the desert, its course altered by floods, its banks dissolved by wind and rain. But its spirit, its function, its fundamental principle lives on. The knowledge, the sheer will to tame the wildness of nature for the sake of survival, that is the true, enduring legacy. Imagine the hands that first traced these lines on the earth. Not with maps or sophisticated instruments, but with an intuitive understanding of topography, a keen eye for slope, and a deep respect for the capricious nature of water. Those hands, calloused and strong, shaped the very contours of the landscapes you now traverse. Their sweat mingled with the dust, their breath filled with the dry air, their muscles strained against the stubborn earth, all to bring forth this miracle of flowing water where there was once only parched land. The systems you see today, the elaborate networks of modern irrigation with their concrete linings, their precise sluice gates and their intricate pumps, are all descendants. They are the great-grandchildren of those humble, hand-dug ditches. The engineers who designed them stand on the shoulders of forgotten giants. The farmers who tend their fields, guiding the water to each row of crops, are participating in a ritual that began thousands of years ago, a silent communion with the earth and the water. Trace the path of the water with your eyes. Follow it as it leaves a distant river, diverted by a low weir, or as it emerges from an underground aquifer, brought to the surface by ingenious, sometimes still ancient, devices. It flows through larger feeder canals, then splits into smaller laterals, eventually reaching individual plots of land. Every single turn, every subtle drop in elevation, every opening and closing of a rudimentary gate, is a continuation of that ancient dance between humanity and its most vital resource. Think of the communities that blossomed along these waterways. The villages that became towns, the towns that grew into cities. None of them could have existed without the tireless effort of those who first brought water to the arid lands. Their homes were built with mud bricks mixed with canal water. Their food was grown on soil irrigated by these channels. Their children played by the banks, their animals drank from the steady flow. A whole civilization, an entire way of life, anchored to the dependable ribbon of water. This is not merely history confined to dusty archives or crumbling ruins. This is living history, breathed into every irrigated field, carried in every drop of water that sustains life. It is in the taste of the grain, the sweetness of the fruit, the shade of the trees that owe their existence to these ancient feats of engineering and labor. You are walking through a landscape shaped by the hands of countless individuals, whose names are lost to time, but whose work endures with startling clarity. Their legacy is not just the canals themselves, but the very possibility of sustained life in challenging environments. It is the art of turning barren ground into fertile ground, of conjuring abundance from scarcity. Consider the enormous scale of this forgotten effort. Entire civilizations dedicated vast portions of their labor force to this task, generation after generation. It was a project that spanned lifetimes, often beyond the scope of any single ruler or dynasty. It was a collective undertaking, driven by necessity and a shared vision of prosperity. The rhythm of the seasons, the ebb and flow of rivers, the delicate balance of ecosystems, all were understood and manipulated with a profound, if unwritten, wisdom. The placement of a headgate, the angle of a bank, the width and depth of a channel, these were not arbitrary decisions. They were the culmination of trial and error, of accumulated experience, passed down from elder to apprentice, from parent to child, through the unspoken language of shared work. Feel the sunlight on your skin. Imagine the same sun beating down on those ancient laborers, day after day as they dug, lifted, and shaped the earth. Their effort was not just physical, it was an act of profound hope, a belief in the future, a commitment to those who would come after them. They built for permanence, for the generations yet unborn. And their gift continues to give. The very concept of civilization, the idea of settling down, cultivating the land, and building complex societies, is inextricably linked to the mastery of water. Without irrigation, many of the world's great early civilizations simply would not have emerged from the desert dust. They would have remained scattered, nomadic groups, forever at the mercy of unpredictable rainfall. So, as you listen to the steady murmur of an irrigation channel today, or walk through a field brought to life by its waters, you are not just observing a modern agricultural practice. You are witnessing a direct continuation of ancient ingenuity and colossal human effort. You are standing in the shadow of giants whose names we may never know, but whose impact is as real and tangible as the water flowing before you. Their legacy is a subtle one, often overlooked in the dramatic narratives of kings and conquerors. But it is arguably more fundamental, more enduring than any empire. It is the steady, quiet hum of life year after year, sustained by a network of arteries that pump vitality into the heart of human settlement. Even the tools have echoes. The simple shovel, the digging stick, the basket for carrying earth, these basic implements, refined over millennia, still find their counterparts in modern manual labor. The fundamental physics of moving earth and directing water remain unchanged. Gravity, gradient, and human grit are constants. You stand there, a bridge across time, connecting the distant past with the vibrant present. The forgotten laborers are not truly forgotten as long as the water flows, as long as the fields yield their bounty, as long as communities thrive in lands once considered desolate. Their work is etched into the landscape, not in monuments of stone, but in the living, breathing reality of sustained existence. Look at the subtle contours of the land around you. Notice how the earth gently slopes towards the channel, how the fields are terraced or leveled to accept the water evenly. These are not always natural formations. Often, these are inherited shapes, subtle adjustments made by countless generations, building upon the foundational work of the very first ditch diggers. The wisdom embedded in these systems is profound. It speaks of a deep understanding of natural processes, of geology, of hydrology, all learned through direct observation and painstaking effort. It is a wisdom that often predates written language, passed down through demonstration and imitation, woven into the very fabric of daily life. Imagine the joy, the profound relief, that first generation of farmers must have felt as the water reached their parched fields for the very first time. The collective gasp, the shared celebration, the realization that a new era had begun. That feeling, that moment of triumph over scarcity, echoes in the heart of every farmer who watches the water seep into their soil today. The canals you encounter, whether they are still functional or merely ancient scars on the landscape, are monuments to cooperation. They required coordination on a massive scale, an ability to organize labor, to plan, and to execute over extended periods. They represent humanity's earliest large-scale infrastructure projects, undertaken not for conquest but for sustenance. And so, as you feel the soft breeze on your face, carrying the scent of irrigated fields, you are inhaling the breath of history. You are touching the living fabric of a world shaped by hands that worked in obscurity, yet built a legacy of staggering importance. Their contribution, though anonymous, is inseparable from the very pulse of life itself in countless regions across the globe. Their legacy is a testament to resilience, to the quiet power of persistence, and to the extraordinary capacity of ordinary people to transform their world. It is a reminder that the most profound changes are often wrought not by the roar of battles, but by the steady rhythmic scrape of a shovel against the earth, day after forgotten day. The water continues to flow, a liquid memory, carrying the story of their enduring power, a living legacy etched not in stone, but in the fertile heart of the earth itself. The earth holds their memory, yes, a fertile heart nourished by their toil, but what of the men and women themselves? What of their voices, their faces, their individual stories, now lost to the vast, swirling currents of time? You can almost hear the faint echo of their grunts, the rhythmic clang of their simple tools, if you listen very closely, beyond the hum of modern life. Imagine yourself standing on the edge of a newly opened canal segment, the air thick with the smell of damp earth and human sweat. It is not just a ditch in the ground you are observing, but a monumental scar carved by countless hands, each one belonging to a person with hopes, fears, and a life lived under the vast, indifferent sky. These were the forgotten diggers, the unsung current flowing beneath the grand narratives of kings and empires. Their names are not etched in stone tablets, their deeds not celebrated in epic poems, yet their collective effort shaped the very landscapes you now inhabit. You stand there, feeling the sun beat down just as it beat down on them, day after grueling day. They were the ones who moved mountains not with magic but with brute strength, persistence, and an unwavering commitment to a task that often seemed endless. Think of the sheer scale of it. Thousands, tens of thousands, sometimes hundreds of thousands of people, all laboring simultaneously, transforming the face of the earth with nothing more sophisticated than picks, shovels, baskets, and their own raw muscle. Picture the scene. You see them, a continuous human chain. One person breaks the hard-baked soil with a heavy pickaxe, the metal ringing against rock. Beside them, another scoops the loosened earth into a woven basket. That basket is then hoisted onto the shoulder of a third, who carries it to a growing spoil heap, perhaps a mile away, before returning for another load. This ceaseless cycle, repeated from dawn until dusk, under the scorching sun or in the biting chill of winter, was their existence. There was no heavy machinery, no dynamite, only the steady, unyielding power of human hands and backs. As you look closer, you notice the details. The calloused hands, thick and scarred, bearing the marks of their relentless work. The sun-darkened skin, etched with lines of fatigue and exposure. The simple, often threadbare clothing, stained with mud and sweat. You can almost feel the ache in their muscles, the burning in their lungs, the dull throb in their heads from the relentless exertion. Accidents were common, a constant specter hanging over every swing of a pick, every lift of a loaded basket. A misplaced foot, a collapsing embankment, a sudden illness in the brutal conditions, any of these could mean the end of a life, unmourned by history, another nameless casualty in the grand enterprise. These workers came from all walks of life. Some were free laborers, perhaps seeking seasonal work to feed their families, their wages meager but essential. Others might have been conscripted, forced into service by local rulers or imperial decrees, their labor a tax paid in sweat and blood. Some could have been enslaved, their very existence defined by the unending demand for their physical strength. Their motivations varied, from the desperate need for survival to coercion, but their combined efforts created the lifeblood of civilizations. Consider the human cost. Beyond the physical strain, there was the mental fortitude required. Imagine the monotony, the endless repetition of the same strenuous tasks, day in and day out, for months, even years. What sustained them? Was it the camaraderie of shared hardship? The simple satisfaction of seeing a tangible result, a channel deepening, a distant field beginning to green with irrigation? Or was it simply the grim determination to survive another day, to earn another crust of bread for their loved ones? You try to place yourself in their mindset, to understand the silent strength that allowed them to persevere against such overwhelming odds. These people were not engineers designing complex systems on papyrus or clay tablets. They were the implementers, the doers, the human engines of progress. Their expertise was practical, honed by generations of experience in moving earth and stone. They understood the nuances of the soil, the resistance of rock, the flow of water, not through abstract calculations, but through intimate, lived knowledge. They were the silent experts, their wisdom passed down through observation and practice, essential to the success of these massive projects. And yet, despite their indispensable role, their stories largely remain untold. You will not find statues erected in their honor, nor grand monuments celebrating their collective achievement. History too often focuses on the architects of power, the conquerors, the visionaries, while the vast armies of laborers who turned those visions into reality fade into the background, their contributions rendered invisible by the passage of time. This segment, then, is an attempt to turn that tide, however slightly. It is an invitation to you, the listener, to acknowledge their presence, to recognize their profound impact. When you next see a river tamed, a desert blooming, or a city thriving near an ancient waterway, remember the hands that made it possible. Remember the anonymous millions who toiled with such incredible resilience, whose efforts laid the very foundations of human prosperity and development. Their labor was not merely a means to an end, it was a testament to the enduring human spirit. It speaks of a communal effort on a scale rarely contemplated, where individual identities merged into a vast, collective will. Without their steady application of force, without their unwavering commitment, the great granaries would have remained empty, the fields barren, the cities parched. The very sustenance of life for entire populations depended on their silent, monumental efforts. Think of the silence of their passing. When a canal was completed, the diggers moved on, or perhaps returned to their villages, their task done, their bodies aching, their souls undoubtedly weary. The water flowed, life continued, and their immense contribution receded into the past, becoming part of the landscape itself, indistinguishable from the natural world it had helped to create. You can almost feel the phantom ache in your own back as you consider the generations who dedicated their lives to shaping the land. This act of remembrance is not about unearthing forgotten names, for many will forever remain beyond our reach. Instead, it is about honoring the type of person they were, resilient, hardworking, essential. It is about recognizing that civilization stands on the shoulders of these unsung giants, whose sweat and blood fertilized the very soil from which our societies grew. Their legacy is not just the physical canals, but the very principle of human ingenuity and cooperation on a grand, anonymous scale. You are standing now, in your mind's eye, at the confluence of time and labor. The water flowing through those ancient channels whispers their story, a persistent, murmuring current that carries the memory of their lives. It is a story of quiet heroism, of unyielding effort, of a deep and fundamental connection between humanity and the earth it sought to shape. As you reflect on the scale of their achievement, consider this: every drop of water that flowed through those ancient canals, every grain of wheat that grew in the irrigated fields, every life that was sustained by that water, owes an immeasurable debt to these forgotten diggers. Their work was the very foundation upon which entire cultures flourished. They were the architects of abundance, the silent providers, the bedrock of stability. We often glorify the leaders who commissioned these projects, the scholars who documented them, but the true, tangible creation sprang from the tireless efforts of the nameless many. Their enduring power is not in their individual fame, but in the sheer, transformative impact of their collective will. Their story is a reminder that the most significant contributions to human progress often come not from the loud and celebrated, but from the quiet, relentless work of those who remain in the shadows, their hands in the earth, their hearts set on the immense task before them. So, let us carry their memory forward, not as a burden of guilt for their anonymity, but as an inspiration. An inspiration to appreciate the foundations upon which our world is built, and to recognize the profound dignity of all labor, especially that which seeks to nurture life and foster shared prosperity. The unsung current of their sacrifice and dedication flows through the very veins of our shared history, a quiet, powerful force that continues to shape our present and future. You can almost feel their presence, a collective energy shimmering in the air, a silent testament to the enduring power of the human spirit to move earth, to channel water, and to build a better world, one shovelful at a time. Their legacy is not merely the canals, but the very possibility of human flourishing. It is a story told not in words, but in the ceaseless flow of water, a living monument to the forgotten diggers, whose hands sculpted the earth and nurtured civilization.